explosion. Tim's news 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 explosion.
Oh, sorry, I just had to blow my nose there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 12th of May, 2025. We are live on the Wilms Front YouTube channel, the Wilms Front Rumble channel, and on my X account. Hello to everyone in the live chat. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where last Friday, the City of Melbourne held the M2050 Summit at Melbourne Town Hall, where attendees discussed what Melbourne should look like in 2050 as a global city of 9 million people.
A plan to charge motorists to enter the CBD is being put forward to deal with the city's growing population. As Mimi Becker reports, it was among several big ideas floated at a summit mapping out Melbourne's future.
A meeting of minds in the Melbourne Town Hall, the M2050 Summit, making a plan for the city's future.
We are asking the big questions. What should Melbourne be like in the year 2050?
From housing to safety and the arts, it was all on the agenda. By the 2050s, more than 9 million people will call Melbourne home.
As more and more people are trying to come into our cities, the challenge is our roads get super busy.
The Productivity Commission putting forward a proposal to bring in a congestion levy, a charge for motorists to try to limit the number of cars and trucks and encourage people to walk or ride instead.
New York has just introduced such a charge. What we've seen is that travel times have fallen on all the routes that are going into the city.
And despite introducing more bike lanes, the Lord Mayor is not so sure.
I'm not here ruling out, ruling in, but look, I've had a position previously of not supporting a congestion charge here in the city of Melbourne.
The state government has already increased a congestion tax on CBD car parks. The Premier now focused on building better public transport, with the Metro Tunnel set to be running by the end of this year.
It will have the capacity to bring in 500,000 people in and out of the city every single week.
While the summit looked ahead to Melbourne in 2050, there'll also be a smaller community people's panel. Their feedback and today's big ideas will then shape the City of Melbourne's plan for the next 4 years. Mimi Becker.
It reminds me of Kevin Rudd's 2020 summit back in 2008. Does anyone remember that? It was when he was first elected and wanted to think big. And of course, that's where the idea of a big Australia, which we're currently all enjoying, being enriched, was embraced. Now, Nicholas Rees, who was elected as Lord Mayor last year after taking over from Sally Crap, and he campaigned that he didn't want to see bike lanes expanded in the CBD. And of course, you know my view on how annoying and self-entitled cyclists are, given Jeremy Vine over in the UK has made me hate all cyclists. So that is something that I won't be pleased about. And so how should we believe him when he says that he's not in favor of a congestion tax? And of course, that's the solution to everything, it seems, by these urban planners, another tax. And the car parks in the CBD, they have a tax on them as part of it's already a congestion charge. So I'm not sure what extra congestion charge is being proposed. Also, Nicholas Rees, you might have seen this last week, that he is looking at having AI facial recognition CCTV cameras. So they could be used on Melbourne city centre CCTV network to identify troublemakers. So it apparently will allow new video analytics technology to be monitored and track individuals known to authorities. So it includes facial and gait recognition, along with AI to scan footage for specific behaviours and identifying items. Yet it still isn't good at detecting people coming into the MCG with firearms. There was a teen who was searched and cautioned. They're going to Marvel Stadium last Saturday afternoon, Essendon and Sydney. He didn't have a ticket, but he had a knife, a real knife, and a fake gun. So Mr. Rees said the council should embrace cutting-edge technology to improve safety. Our CCTV cameras and operators are our guardian angels in the sky for Melburnians. The program save lives and keep Melburnians safe. The proposal includes expanding the remit of CCTV operations to include acts of public nuisance and damage to property and waste dumping. Well, are you going to use them to track down Antifa? Current focus of CCTV network is on detecting crime and collecting evidence and emergency responses. So gait recognition technology uses AI to analyze vision of how people walk and identify individuals on any unique patterns they display. So it's basically sort of a bit like Minority Report pre-crime. And so only one councillor voted against the motion, and it's already used in the Logan City Council in southeast Queensland to search for number plates or people wearing specific clothing or accessories such as backpacks. So they will produce a report by July, and of course they'll make sure that it's compatible with the Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act, just like Dan Andrews made sure that all these lockdowns were compatible with the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities, basically showing that it wasn't worth the paper it has been written on. Tristan Davies, hello in the chat. Can we just not let in all of these third worlders in? Who cares about congestion? My concern is Melbourne becoming third world. Trains can be built, but replacing the population is hard to reverse. Say goodbye to Melbourne being one of the nicest cities. Well, Jacinta Allen, she's got a new chief commissioner on the beat, Mike Bush, who used to be the chief commissioner of New Zealand Police, because they are a unitary government. They don't have state governments, so they just have one national police force. So I asked Dewey Jabor, my ex-Tread Tasman Talk co-host, said that he's the worst cop we ever had. He retired from New Zealand's police commissioner in 2020 and has been in the private sector doing consulting and private investigating. So, I mean, it might be good to get someone fresh, not in the two-tiered Victoria Police hierarchy. They didn't go for Chief Wiggum, Luke Cornelius, the current Assistant Commissioner for Human Resources. We remember him from the lockdown, where he said, if anyone's thinking of attending a protest, we'll be ready for you. Now, there was last Friday, remember how the Antifa socialists in Fitzroy, they tried to start BLM, another BLM, I think we're up to BLM 3.0. So knife-wielding Adifar Ahmed, which is a Somalian name, was not. It was wielding a knife at police, so they shot him dead. There was a violent a protest vigil turned violent in Footscray. It was mostly peaceful, of course. And now last Friday night there was they tried again, these Antifa socialists, and they probably were the ones who assaulted police when they were part of Trans-Tifa, when they went through their rampage in the CBD, assaulting police and members of the public. This was 9 News' coverage.
We have breaking news for you now. And a group of protesters calling for Victoria's entire police force to be abolished is gathered outside Southern Cross Station.
Ollie Haig is there for us this evening. Ollie, a man has been dragged away by officers.
Oh yeah, that's right, Tom. Tension's certainly high down here on the corner of Collins Street and Spencer Street. You can see we've got police horses here behind me because a protest, as you mentioned, they're calling for the abolishment of Victoria Police occurring here on the other side of the road of this intersection. You can see this is a major intersection and we're at peak hour at the moment. As I mentioned, they are protesting, calling for the abolishment of Victoria Police. And as you mentioned, Tom, one person was dragged away. You can see from these pictures when those tensions boiled over and that person was being questioned for a period of time before eventually being released. Now at this stage there doesn't appear to be any major disruption here on the corner of Spencer Street or just outside Southern Cross Station really, but as you can see we've got a tram line here, several major tram lines, as well as plenty of people heading home, as well as all of these vehicles, but as we know with a lot of these protests things can turn very quickly, but at this stage no major disruptions, but as we can see here at the moment, police certainly on standby in case any tensions.
Now, despite Premier Jacinta Allen overseeing this increase in crime and antisocial behaviour, which include Trans-Tifa, Antifa, socialist activism, she spent the last week doing a victory lap at suburban rail loop sites following the swing to the Labor Party at the federal election on May 3. She spun it as there was a swing to the federal Labor government, not in spite of what we're doing in Victoria, but because what we're doing in Victoria. And of course, she'll get, with the re-election of the Albanese government, she'll get the $2.2 million federal money for the suburban rail loop. Just got to find the other 32.8 billion to fund it. And she boasted that we won all of the federal seats around the suburban rail loop. Today, she was at the site of the Airport Rail Sunshine Super Hub. So before work actually starts on the rail line to Melbourne Airport, there has to be built first this Sunshine Super Hub to untangle all of the Western rail lines, and that is going to cost $4 billion in total, and $2 billion is coming from the Albanese government. So I think she was obviously celebrating because she's getting some federal money for her pet infrastructure projects, and also breathing a sigh of relief because she lives to fight another day as Premier. And she also announced today that in the budget, state budget, that'll be in 8 days' time, there'll be $5 billion spent on what's termed switching on the big build for the Metro Tunnel. That has been under construction for 10 years and open at the end of the year. So that goes from South Yarra to Footscray through the CBD. So they'll finally complete something. And certainly I welcome it. I just wish that it'd be on time and on budget. It's blown out to $15 billion. And We have a new state treasurer here, so Jacqueline Symes, who took over from Tim Pallas, aka Uncle Fester, who resigned as the member for Werribee at the end of last year. There was the by-election earlier this year where State Labor nearly lost the seat, and Uncle Fester, there was never a tax increase that he didn't like, and Jacqueline Symes, she is increasing the emergency services levy on farmers. So they've been protesting at Spring Street, and also, well, I guess you should call it a not so a secret deferment of increased public spending because it was broken in the Age newspaper today by Chip Legrand. The state government secretly ripped $2.4 billion from state schools after delaying by 3 years its commitment to provide the funding required to pay for the long-promised Gonski education reviews. And as a result, the Albanese government is, because the idea of the schools funding that was signed before the federal election is that there will be less federal government funding, because the agreement was to match it. So the Commonwealth has agreed to lift its share of funding for state schools to 25%, but this is contingent on the states first reaching their benchmark. And because Labor always proclaims that they're the best party on health and education, imagine if a Liberal government did this. They would say that it was a spending cut of $2.4 billion. And it became unpopular last year. Well, that's when the Allen government started to become unpopular, is when it mooted proposed hospital cuts, when despite Dean Andrews campaigning on 2022 to increase hospital funding. So when Labor cuts what it proclaims it is its strengths, health and education, that is when the voters turn against a Labor government. So it's going to be a horror budget next week. Of course, we're projected to be at $178 billion of state debt, and of course the interest to service that. And now Jacinta Allen, she has decided before the budget to go on a trade mission to China. I don't think she probably wishes she could revive the Belt and Road that Dan Andrews signed up to, but was torn up by the Morrison government, obviously looking for some Chinese financing there. And of course, the moral decay of Victoria continues. So I don't know if many of you had the misfortune to see this mural outside a business premises in Fitzroy. So it depicts a bound and gagged woman. It looks like one of those anime furries. Fellow Conservative Australian says they'll still get voted in, Tim. That's why they imported so many Indians. Well, it's certainly working. So this mural was drawn by a Los Angeles-based street artist known as Lauren Y.S., who identifies as queer. It's of course, whatever that means. I mean, it means, in my view, Marxist, groomer, or straight person trying to feel special. So it got more than 1,000 email complaints. And the City of Yarramia, Stephen Jolly said, well, it was not council's role to be the art police. The mural had broken the rules. They don't have a planning permit. They'll be approached about it, and they'll be dealt with in the normal way. Stephen Jolly said most of the complaints were from Collective Shout, which is Melinda Takard-Reist's organisation. And so it talks about locals in Fitzroy having a mixed response, and this is a far left area. One said, I don't know if sexualized images in front of children's faces is a good way of stirring controversy. You reckon? But one other said, I think it's representing a culture that a lot of people don't know about. Shibari, Japanese rope bondage, is beautiful art form that brings intimacy in people. Well, I don't think we want to import some of the dark underground aspects of Japanese culture here. So Lauren YS said that the work was tame compared to their other work. Okay, I definitely don't want to see that. And that it's about empowerment and queer selfhood. And the location was chosen specifically to avoid foot traffic. There is a sex shop a few blocks away on a much higher traffic street with synthetic boobs in the window. Well, imagine my shock. That's in Fitzroy. And now Ralph Babette, the Victorian United Australia Party senator, has called for a police investigation into the mural. In his press release, said "Smot on our streets." He described the we shouldn't call it artwork, disturbing, and has called it filth. It's disturbing, highly sexualized, and no place being displayed on a public street. Children walk past this area every day. What message does it send when we normalize graphic sexual imagery in public spaces? Victoria Police must act immediately to remove this disgraceful material. It could violate Victoria's Summary Offences Act 1966, urging authorities to take immediate action. He also warned that failure to address the situation could be perceived as a tactic approval of content that undermines community standards and public decency. This is about protecting our children and community from degeneracy. The public is rightly outraged, and I stand with them. And he posted on X, how the hell is it appropriate for the side of a building full in public view? These leftists need their heads read. Exactly. And that's obviously why I don't choose to live in Fitzroy. Last time I was there, it's got a real shudder there. Same would be if I went to Northcote and Brunswick. INGX says, Melbourne is the Aussie version of Los Angeles, lefty shithole. Well, Los Angeles, San Francisco, one of them. Now let's turn to the aftermath of last week's federal election. It was only 9 days ago now. It seems like it was a while ago now. So counting has continued. And the Australian Electoral Commission, I've heard a lot of commentary that, oh, they haven't declared a seat, so how come Albanese was proclaimed the winner on election night and Peter Dutton conceded? Well, obviously those who, not just the TV networks, but also these, what would you call, these, you wouldn't call them hobbyists, but they do it in their spare time, these election data nerds. So when the Australian Electoral Commission declares all the seats, House of Representatives seats, and the Senate, it will roughly be what was projected on election night. The Senate is more up in the air, which I'll get to shortly. So this is the ABC's. Their chief election analyst, Anthony Green, it's his last election, but all the AEC results are fed through the ABC computers, and that is where the projections come from. So there is the Australian Labor Party currently sitting on 93 out of 150 seats. The Liberal National Party on 42 seats. And 16 of those are national. So the Liberal Party is currently only sitting on 26 seats. Yes, Monique Ryan is one of the 11 others. It was projected that she would retain Kooyong, so Karen from Kooyong, will remain in Parliament for another 3 years, but Zoe Daniel, who is the projected loser in Goldstein to Liberal Tim Wilson, who will return to Parliament after a 3-year absence, Zoe Daniel is refusing to concede. She says, I understand everyone's desire to rule aligned under the election result. I'd also prefer it was resolved. However, there are still up to 10,000 votes to count, including postals, absentee, and pre-poll declaration votes. The AUC has not declared the result. Please respect the process and voters until a definitive position is clear. Sounds like she's behaving in a way that when Donald Trump didn't concede, she would have condemned him. So a bit hypocritical of her. And now there's three seats that are in doubt. So that is the seat of Longman in northern Brisbane. Then, well, this seat of Flinders which is, well, it's just just further south of me on the Mornington Peninsula. Zoe McKenzie of the Liberal Party will retain that against Teal independent Ben Smith. I think the reason the ABC is not calling it is because they don't know. Well, it's very obvious Ben Smith is going to finish second, but definitely no one is calling Corwell. So that is the seat in the northwest of Melbourne. It is a very diverse seat. In fact, Cos Samaras, the Redbridge director, ex-deputy Labor state campaign director in Victoria, called for the seat of Corwell to be renamed because Arthur Corwell was an ardent defender of the White Australia policy, so it was inappropriate for a seat to be named after him when it's such a diverse electorate. So coming first was the Labor Party's Bassem Abdo, who was the handpicked successor of the outgoing Labor MP, Maria Vamavikunu, who's been there since 2001. So Bassem Abdo was her staffer. He'd be the first Palestinian Australian member of Parliament. Paleoconservative Australian says diversity equals less white people. Exactly. Well, it also means less white men, to be more specific. Iron Duke says, as Tony Abbott correctly said, the Liberal Nationals fought on nothing. Well, he embraced the strategy of the Liberals and Nationals being the party of migrants. So he certainly played his part. So second is the Liberal candidate, Usman Ghana. So Labor 30.6%, Liberals 15.6%. But then there were all of these independents. So there is Carly Moore with 12.1%. There's another independent, Joseph Yohana. There's the Greens, Ravet Kuna Karcha, 7.9%. Another independent on 70%, Salman Mosilla. So the AEC, they said that they're not going to be able to have a result in this seat until June because the distribution of preferences will be so complicated. So our preferential voting system, normally it's two-party preferred between Labor versus the Liberal National, but the rise of these independents, and obviously this is going to, we've seen the rise of the other vote this election rise to above a third. So the way that preferential voting works is that somebody who comes third or fourth, like Carly Moore or Joseph Yohana, can win the seat if all the others preference them. So this is something very unique to preferential voting or ranked voter choice or instant runoff, as it's called sometimes. somewhere around the world. What they do, I know in France, is that the top two have a runoff. So the eventual winner has 50 plus 1% of the vote. But an instant runoff, obviously you have to number every boxes. So it's possible that one of these two independents could leapfrog both the finish second and then win the seat off the Labor Party. So the AEC calls it the most complex distribution of preferences they've ever had to deal with, and they have to wait for all the votes to be in. Maybe they'll have to bring out the supercomputer which they use for the Senate, where they enter into the supercomputer all the ballots and the preferences manually, and then they press the button to decide who gets elected. Iron says, they changed the name of Batman in Melbourne, I believe, one of the founders of the city. Yes, because it was a Labor Greens contested seat, and John Batman is apparently a racist genocider, even though he bought Melbourne from the local Aboriginal tribe in a fair deal. So it was renamed Cooper after some Indigenous Australian. So the Senate, that will definitely not be counted and declared until June. So as I mentioned, all of the Senate ballot papers and their preferences are all entered manually into this supercomputer, and then the magic button is pressed, which determines who is elected. A senator who has the 6 Senate seats in each of the 6 states, and for 6 years, and the 2 each in the territories for 3 years. So this is how how it's looking at the moment. Now, the Labor Party is guaranteed to have at least 26 seats, as is the Liberal National Coalition, as is the Greens 11, and One Nation, Pauline Hanson obviously is continuing. David Pocock easily run re-election in the ACT. Fatima Payman is continuing with, because she was elected in 2022. So we're stuck with her as a Senator of Western Australia until June 30th, 2028. Australia's Voice didn't do very well. Tammy Tyrrell, who was elected for the Jackie Lambie Network, is in for another 3 years, as is Lydia Thorpe. Now, the United Australia Party, Ralph Babet, he has said that he is not going to recontest the Victorian Senate in 2028. Well, Clive Palmer has said that he is unlikely to bankroll any more elections. So that is unfortunate, because he was a great advocate for all of us in the Senate. So just going through starting with the ACT. So David Pocock easily re-elected, as was Finance Minister Katie Gallagher. So the Liberals go for a second election in a row without any representation at in the ACT, neither in the lower house seats or in the Senate. So their candidate Jacob Vadikatharu, actually his pitch was, people vote for me so I can be a voice in the party room against public service cuts. In the New South Wales Senate, so there'll be 2 Liberal, 2 Labor, Marine Faruqi re-elected, and the final spot is between the Labor Party's Emilia Belic, I think that's a Croatian name, and the One Nation candidate Warwick Stacey. That is the same contest here in Victoria, between so 2 Liberal, 1 Green, and the final seat will be between One Nation's Warren Pickering and the 3rd Labor candidate, Dr. Michelle Anajaraja, who was the member for Higgins, but the seat was abolished. So she ran for the Senate. She's also a COVID crazy like Dr. Monique Ryan. So Michelle Anajaraja, she advocated for masking 2-year-olds during the COVID lockdowns. Queensland, even though there is it was unclear on election night whether the LNP would get a second senator, but the LNP Susan McDonald, who sits with the National Party room, is re-elected. So it's 2 each, and Larissa Waters of the Greens. Now, Malcolm Roberts of One Nation on 7%, Jared Rennick's People First on 4.7%. So sadly, it's only can be one, Malcolm Roberts or Jared Rennick re-elected to the Senate. That's why it would have been good if the LNP had been reduced to less than 2 quotas there. And now it was in Queensland and Victoria where the Liberal National Senate vote stuck above 30%. So it's under 30% in New South Wales and Western Australia. So there is an outside chance that One Nation could get the WA Senate spot. So it's 2 Liberal, 2 Labor, and the third Labor candidate, Deep Singh. And then in South Australia, it is 2 Liberal, 2 Labor, 1 Green, Sarah Hanson-Young, and final spot between One Nation and the Labor third candidate, Charlotte Walker. In the Northern Territory, Labor's Melindindra McCarthy and the Country Liberal Party, Jacinta Price, easily re-elected. And in Tasmania, that's where it's really interesting. So Labor have got 2, Liberals have got 1, Greens have got 1. There's 2 positions which are up for grabs because the Liberal primary vote crashed to 23.7%. Jackie Lambie got 7.2%, and Pauline Hanson's daughter, Lee Hanson, for One Nation, got 5.1%. So Richard Colbeck, he is dead wood. I'd be happy if he lost. No, I'd be happy if Jackie Lambie lost as well. So my only wish is that Lee Hanson is elected to the Senate because she would be an absolute intellectual powerhouse in the Senate there. So that is the state of the Senate. Now, there has been a lot of quite a tense and sometimes terse debate between the minor freedom parties and those in the freedom community about what should be the path forward. I've mentioned last week that Monica Schmidt, she proposed that people join the Liberal Party to change from within. I asked Kyle Kutazi, the ex-New South Wales, the Liberal state executive member who was expelled. He said that that's a futile exercise. They'll knock you back from membership. And so Monica, even though she's claiming that she wants to stand for unity and not have division, she seems to be quite terse with people disagreeing with her. So she sort of changed her mind now. She wants united freedom right, and she's also very defensive when it comes to people criticizing that she is paying herself $1,000 a week in retainer for the Dan Andrews private prosecution, which it's got up to $124,000 now. And I don't know why she's doing this smarmy post, because it's not the anti-cookers who are having a go at her. It is the fellow members of the freedom community. So she posted, "My transparency has gotten under people's skin, apparently. Never before has someone raised funds for a lawsuit, never published every single cent and promised refunds if the case doesn't go ahead. Well, if the case doesn't go ahead, that are you going to pay back the money that you paid yourself? I paid myself $2,000 for full 2 weeks. I've spent marketing and promoting the fundraiser. That's a lot of for a GoFundMe on a website. That's a pretty big expense. However, that won't be the case every week, only when it's full-time hours. Well, what are full-time hours? I find it interesting that there was mentioned the barrister's fee of $1,100 for only 2 hours. Sounds like you're going to burn through the money quite quickly, Monica, because that's just for the initial consult. In comparison, I'm running the entire project, but don't deserve a small token for my efforts. If you're a donor and don't value the time and skill I'm pouring into this campaign, you can ask for a refund. Well, most people who are activists, they actually spend their own money. And political candidates who run for office as well, they don't take it from other people. And of course, Monica, she owes money for Victoria Police legal expenses, because even though she won on one of the wrongful arrest claims against Victoria Police, because she rejected a settlement from Victoria Police and she was awarded less by the judge because she refused the settlement and basically wasted the court's time by refusing to take the settlement. She has to pay Victoria Police's legal expenses. That's why the family of Ryan Mulman, Bike Boy, accepted the settlement from Slater and Gordon because it was an offer they couldn't refuse, even though there were a lot of people who would be arguing, take it all the way to the Supreme Court. It was clearly Slater and Gordon, and Dan and Kath Andrews clearly didn't want it to get to that point, because there would be so much that would come out in court. So that, well, look at just what's already come out already. Now, Anthony Albanese announced his new cabinet and ministry. Now, in the Labor Party, it's the factions that choose the front bench, not the Prime Minister, though Anthony Albanese was happy for the factions to dump Industry Minister Ed Husic, who's gone on a massive dummy spit saying that the Labor Party says they're for diversity but are dumping a Muslim cabinet minister. Well, he's still a white European, Ed Husic. Bosnia is part of Europe. It's one of 2 European countries which is majority Muslim, Bosnia and Albania. So he's still a white male. And also Mark Dreyfus, the Attorney General, has been dumped, which I'm not sad to see him go, because he's always been a real nasty piece of work. But of course, there is the members of the Jewish community saying, "Oh, we've lost a Jewish voice in cabinet," while the Muslims are saying we lost a Muslim voice in cabinet. But there will be a Muslim in Anthony Albanese's cabinet in Ed Husic's place. So this is the cabinet. So obviously Albanese Prime Minister, Richard Marles Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Defence, Penny Wong remains Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Jim Chalmers, Treasurer, so he's a PhD in Paul Keating, who criticised the dumping of Ed Husic. Katie Gallagher is Minister for Finance, the Public Service, Women and Government Services. Don Farrell remains Trade and Tourism and Special Minister of State. Tony Burke remains Home Affairs, Immigration, Citizenship, Cybersecurity, and now Minister for the Arts. And because Mark Dreyfus has been dumped as Attorney General, Tony Burke will get back into Home Affairs, ASIO, and the Australian Federal Police, which went to Mark Dreyfus when he was Attorney General, probably because he wanted more power. Mark Butler remains Health and Ageing Minister and now is Minister for the NDIS. So basically that's the big spending portfolio, Chris Bowen, remaining climate change and energy, Catherine King, infrastructure, Amanda Rithworth, employment and workplace relations, Jason Clare remains Attorney General. Michelle Rowland is now the Attorney General. So goes from communications, where she, of course, failed to pass the Disinformation Bill, but got the under-16 social media ban. So she'll be also in charge of the implementation of the social media ban for under-16s. And who knows, she might have another go at trying to get the Disinformation Bill through. So Julie Collins is Minister for Agriculture. Claire O'Neill remains Minister for Housing. Madeleine King remains Minister for Resources. Murray Watt is now the new Minister for the Environment. Melanjindra McCarthy is Minister for Indigenous Australians. Annika Wells, Minister for Communications. Pat Conroy, Minister for Defence Industry. Dr. Anne Ali. She has a PhD in anti-terrorism, counter-terrorism. So she's Minister for Small Business, International Development and Multicultural Affairs. So there's a Muslim in cabinet. Of course, Anne Ali doesn't wear the hijab. And Senator Tim Ayres, who I've never heard of, is Industry Minister. So they're all cabinet ministers. That's about 20, because there's 30 in the ministry. That's basically 23 in the cabinet and then 7 in the outer ministry. I won't go through all of those, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 assistant ministers. So that's the renamed parliamentary secretaries. And then there's the special envoys, where they don't get extra pay, but it's basically a position to make them feel special. So Josh Burns, the other Labor Jewish MP, re-elected for Macnamara in Inner Melbourne, special envoy for social housing and homelessness. And then the most ridiculous special envoy is Tim Watt, special envoy for the Indian Ocean Affairs, even though the Indian Ocean is on Australia's west, and he's a Melbourne MP for Gellibrand, nowhere near the Indian Ocean. Is that for do with climate change, or all of the subcontinental islands like the Maldives and Sri Lanka? Iron says Albanese remains gay. Larrikin says bunch of quality garbage human beings. Nicely put there. Now we had the first of the 3 leadership contest today for the losing parties. So the National Party room met today. Now Matt Canavan announced late last week that he'd be challenging David Littleproud for the leadership of the National Party. But David Littleproud was re-elected, though the National Party don't tell us the results. And the new deputy leader of the Nationals was Kevin Hogan, the member for Page, and the Senate leader will be Bridget McKenzie, though they're keeping as their deputy Senate leader, Perrin Davey, even though she's been defeated in New South Wales, so they have to elect a new Senate deputy leader. That means, because there's only 4 of them left, so half of them will be in the leadership team. Now, there should have been 5 left, but of course last week Jacinta Price announced that she would be sitting in the Liberal Party room. Now, the Country Liberal Party of the Northern Territory, that is a separate party, but those who are elected at the federal level, whether as in the lower house or the Senate, can either sit with the Liberals or Nationals. And now she sat with the Nationals last term. It's been a convention that the senator sits with the National Party since about 1980, and it was taken as that she would once again sit with the Nationals, because the Nationals sent up its front bench to campaign with her. So they are absolutely filthy that she has decided to sit with the Liberals. Matt Canavan said what she's done is worse than Lydia Thorpe, and because there wasn't even a policy disagreement, it was just ambition, because she's going to be running on a joint ticket tomorrow at the Liberal Party room with Angus Taylor, who, as we're told, is from the right, the Conservative, though I don't know why Jacinta Price would want to be on a ticket with somebody like Angus Taylor. I went through with Kyle Katazi last week all of Angus Taylor's blunders throughout his career. I mean, sure, he may have been a Rhodes Scholar when he was younger, but that doesn't mean you're good at politics. And although he's good at counting the numbers, I mean, though, of course, the fact that Holly Hughes lost Senate pre-selection in New South Wales, and she blames him. She is basically a scorned woman, character assassinating him wherever she can get a platform on Sky News and the ABC. Good to see you in the chat, Arne Anderson. Now, Angus Taylor, his the various clumsy things that he's done. Well, one of them, and it wasn't him directly, it was one of his staff. Now, his Facebook account praised him on his Facebook page when announcing commuter car parks for train stations. Fantastic, great move, well done. So his staff clearly forgot to change the dummy account from Angus Taylor MP. So we now know that a lot of the comments, both from all of the major parties which praise MPs on Facebook, are from dummy accounts from their staff. And then there was also his Mr. Speaker gaffe when the Deputy Speaker was a female, kept saying Mr. Speaker, even when he was corrected, kept saying Mr. Speaker. And then back in 2019, he fell for doctored documents, similar to another Rhodes Scholar, Malcolm Turnbull, fell for a fake email during the Utegate scandal. So Angus Taylor, he sent to the Daily Telegraph this document which supposedly lists the travel expenses of the city of Sydney, which had declared a climate emergency at 17 million. It didn't even say million on the doctored documents, but he interpreted it as millions. But the actual travel amount was 6,000, and the Sydney lawmaker Clover Moore, that's been in our annual report at 6,000. Nobody bothered to check with us. We've provided the metadata to show it hasn't been changed since it was uploaded it. But Angus Taylor, clearly lying, said that he downloaded it from the City of Sydney website, which clearly wasn't true. So he is a absolute clown, and it doesn't make a difference that Jacinta Price is running to be his deputy, because he would be a terrible choice, as would the other contender tomorrow, Susan Ley. Of course, her name is spelt with two S's because she had an extra S to her name, so SUSSAN it is now, after discovering a numerology theory claiming it would bring her an exciting and interesting life. And so this is one of the dirt sheets that has been sent around criticizing Susan Ley. They've added Susan Ley. I'm not pronouncing it properly. I'm actually adding the S's at the beginning, not in the middle. So lists Angus Taylor religion as Anglican, Dantine as Catholic. He ruled himself out. And Susan Ley, her declared faith as numerology. And also what is considered a black mark against Susan Ley is that she has been a critic of Israel. So in 2018, she spoke about the 50th anniversary of the occupation of Palestine. Any visit to the occupied territories is confronting. And we know that the Liberal Party was full 100% behind Israel and Zionism this campaign, which is what I wrote about, why the reason that that one of the main contributing reasons why they failed, as did the Greens. So I wrote, Australian voters want Australia First policies. Now, I mentioned that the Liberal Party, they repudiated their support for free speech in the name of supporting to combat the so-called anti-Semitism crisis, which the attacks in Sydney were all a hoax by organised crime. Watch last week's Four Corners, The Fugitive, which interviews the alleged mastermind. And the Liberals, despite them pledging millions of taxpayers' money to various Jewish organisations, they only won one of the four seats with have a significant Jewish population, Goldstein. And did they offer the other 146 seats the Liberals and Nationals contested the same amount of campaign interest, spending and promises? And then, of course, the Greens being such... I played last week the Greens' failed candidate for Wills, Samantha Ratnam, who resigned from the upper house of the Victorian Parliament to run for the seat, so she's unemployed, told a pro-Palestine rally to vote for Gaza this election. Federal New South Wales Greens Senator Maureen Faruqi told a rally, let's make this election a Palestine election. And also Faruqi led the walkout of the Greens in the Senate after the Albanese government abstained from a UN vote calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. And Adam Bant, who lost his seat and was very ungracious in defeat, and like the Liberals, didn't admit that their fixation on a foreign conflict led to a drop in their support. And Peter Dutton broke his dignified silence, a graceful exit from politics to dance on Adam Bant's defeat. No spin by Adam Bant can change the reality that he and other Green members lost their seats because of their appalling treatment of the Jewish community. Australians were rightly disgusted at their behaviour. We were proud to preference the Greens last, helping ensure Adam Bant lost. Well, you lost your seat, Peter Dutton, because you were too busy campaigning on a single issue related to a foreign conflict. And it doesn't seem that the Liberals and Greens want to learn the lessons. Now, the Facebook boomers, they hated this article because I wrote that the Albanese government, the Labor Party, they focused their campaign on domestic policies. They campaigned on matters that affected ordinary Australians: healthcare, housing, education, and cost of living relief. And now, obviously, what I consider as Australia First policies is different to what Anthony Albanese considers Australia First. But I said that the Freedom Parties, too many of them, were also sucked into spending too much time discussing this conflict halfway around the world. And this meant that the Labor Party could, you saw Albanese get up and say that he stood for Australian values, the Australian way. That should be that should be the freedom parties. We should be providing a counter to what Anthony Albanese says are Australian values and the Australian way. Iron Duke rightly says, why on earth is the Israel-Palestine war Australia's business? Exactly. Well, one of the things, maybe those Facebook boomers had a point, is that I didn't mention that Albanese and Tony Burke are still importing the Gazan so-called refugees. Now, the other policies that the Liberal National Party took to the election, I don't think that they should dump the nuclear policy. The Nationals don't want to. Tim Wilson, who's not going to run for the leadership, and Wambach Goldstein, he is still for nuclear. And obviously the Liberal Party has to be for lower taxes, has to get back to having a proper small business policy. So what Angus Taylor's was tax deductible long business lunches. And now Joel Davis, you remember his free election flyers, which was for those satirical flyers. One was for the Liberal Party and had as its, instead of the Australian flag on the Liberal logo, it was the Israeli flag and saying, give the Jews whatever they want. And then there was the Labor satirical flyer, which was about importing more Indians. Instead of the Labor Party Southern Cross on it, had the poop emoji. And now last week, Joel Davis Victoria Police came to his door to question me about his flyers. I'm under investigation for breaking the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act 2001 because the new Social Cohesion Amendment hasn't come into effect. Apparently publicly advocating for the Liberal Party's pro-Jewish policies incite severe ridicule against the Jewish community. It turns out I am in fact a very bad goy. I guess abolishing free speech and jailing anti-Semites is what we need to make the Jewish community feel safe after all. Whether I agree or disagree with this in public, it seems police came to my door. Maybe I just need to shut my stupid little goy face up entirely. Well, they probably would have, are investigating him over the Labor Indian flyers as well, because there'd be a lot of people. Well, Joel Davis would admit that they were racist flyers. I mean, they were racist flyers. He wouldn't deny that. And so there probably would be enough Indians out there to make a complaint to police. And also last week, Thomas Sewell, he was back in court in Ballarat. I've got so many tabs open here. Bloody hell, I've already gone for an hour. So neo-Nazi Thomas Sewell accuses police of malicious prosecution. This is Oscar Jager. So this was in December 2023. The National Socialist Network had a rally in the Ballarat city centre to commemorate the anniversary of the Eureka stockade. So the court heard members of the public were distressed and outraged by the group's behaviour, and there were numerous 000 calls made throughout the march. Call the police. There's people marching in Ballarat. Sewell will contest the charge against him, saying it was not offensive. And Sewell called the Judicial Register Michael Bolte, who heard his previous court appearances, a coward for not being in court today, said that the prosecution doesn't have a case and that he doesn't have a case to answer, as his alleged conduct was purely political and therefore not offensive related to the charge. He asked for Magistrate Letiza Torres to throw out the case. Sewell also accused Mr. Baldy of malicious prosecution before he accused 2 witnesses and Victoria Police of malicious prosecution as well. He said he would take the matter to the Australia's top court and that he had notified every Attorney General in the country who were going to the High Court and get a judgment. Jack Eatis, a neo-Nazi from Sydney, and other members of the National Socialist Network appeared on the link in support of Sewell. Appeared is there twice. That's poor copy by the Herald Sun. I mean, I sometimes make mistakes on the unshackled.net, but I don't employ a sub-editor like the Herald Sun would, so that's pretty piss poor. So there'll be a 3-day contested hearing on October 27. Now, this article by Oscar Jager has been edited because it said that Fraser Anning was in court via the video link to support him. I think that Oscar realized that that was a fake name by somebody. That wasn't the real Fraser Anning. That's pretty funny that he fell for it. All right. Now, I'm sad to report that there's been some sad passings recently. So John Murphy, the Anzac veteran who was denied entry to the Shrine of Remembrance in Anzac Day 2021, there was that famous photo of him with the barbed wire. At outside the Shrine of Remembrance. Does anyone remember? I should have already had it ready to go here. As John Murphy sadly passed away. Like, that's just a heartbreaking image. Also, there was the death of Daniel Peterson English. So he was the man who was brutally assaulted by Sergeant Beau Barrett of Victoria Police in the 2021 lockdown at Flinders Street Station. Remember, his head was smashed into the pavement. And Barrett was not prosecuted because the magistrate said that there was no prospect of conviction. So he suffered from mental health issues. Daniel Peterson English, he didn't touch the police. He apparently said something that provoked them. Maybe he said, "I smell bacon," but that is very sad as well. And we also are now allowed to remember one of the freedom fighters from a 2020-2021, Autumn Baker. There was a court suppression. She has allegedly been murdered by plumber Mark Graham Ludbrook in 2023, who suffers from a rare condition known as transverse myelitis, a neurological disorder caused by inflammation of the spinal cord, and has only been able to walk a few steps at the time of the alleged murder. On the day Miss Baker was allegedly murdered, Ludbrook, 2 in-house NDIS carers noted he was up and walking through his home naked. The court heard one observer, Ludbrook was acting strangely, including speaking quickly and irrationally. So how Autumn died is that she arrived at his home to discuss his offer for her to move in, to discuss his odd behaviour with his carers. Police allege he went into the kitchen and armed himself with a steak knife and returned to the bedroom where he was seen stabbing himself in the stomach. So Justice John Champion said a carer attempted to intervene and was assisted by Miss Baker, who grabbed the knife. She went to the bedroom and observed Miss Baker on the floor, standing or kneeling over and making stabbing motions at her. Court heard Miss Baker had fought for her life, sustaining defensive wounds to her hands and arms in a final struggle. Miss Baker's body was found inside Ludbrook's house in Hoppers Crossing, west of Melbourne. So this was under a suppression order. So we weren't basically allowed to acknowledge that she had died. But thankfully that has been lifted now. Too much of Victoria is the suppression state. So now that we are allowed to remember her, I remember her from her time of activism. So it's terrible that we've lost her in such circumstances. Now I see a few people up in the chat mentioning that it was Mother's Day yesterday, Margot Huss and Dawn Browning. And now I did notice that Barack Obama on X wished a happy Mother's Day to his wife, Michelle. And also he mentioned that Michelle and I, we welcome the news of the new Pope, of course. Pope Leo XIV, the first American Pope, Robert Francis Prevost, who it's too early to tell what Pope he will be. Though he's a Pope made in America, so Trump's got something made in America. But going back to Barack Obama's X post, I wonder if the edited draft was Michael and I, because there are, well, there's obviously the rumor about, well, Michelle being Michael Obama, Michael Robinson, Big Mike, and then there's the rumor of the Obamas separation. And now, last week I played that on Michelle Obama's podcast, which has got poor ratings, that a choice of words when talking about Marlon Wayne's support of his transgender child is said that warms my heart as a black man. Sounded like she was referring to herself as a black man. But she was on another podcast now, and this is how she described where she is at in her life at the age of 60.
And at this phase of my life, I'm in therapy right now because I'm transitioning. You know, I'm 60 years old. I finished a really hard thing in my life with my family intact. I'm an empty nester. My girls are in, you know, they've been launched. And now for the first time, as I've said before, every choice that I'm making is completely mine. I now don't have the excuse of, well, my kids need this or my husband needs that or the country needs that. So how do I think about this next phase? And let me get some help. Let me unwind some old habits. Let me sort through some old guilt that I've been carrying around. Let me talk about how my relationship with my mother has affected how I think about things. So I'm getting that tune up for this next phase because I believe this is a whole nother phase in life for me. And I now have the wisdom to know, let me go get some coaching while I'm doing it so that I've got other voices other than the people who know me best. I've got a new person that's getting to know me and seeing me completely new and hearing all these emotions. I am an advocate of it. Everybody needs to find their
God, she's a complainer. And there's in another podcast episode, she complained that she had to pay for her and her daughter's own food and travel. That apparently they were living on the brink of poverty in the White House. And of course, she says that because she's now got braided hair, she felt that she couldn't have braided hair when she was the first lady. So yes, but again, I don't know if she's saying this deliberately, Michelle Obama, saying that she's in transition. She surely would be aware of the rumors. Interestingly, she is not taking any legal action like Emmanuel Macron's wife, Brigitte Macron. Now, has anyone heard a Kanye West Yee's latest song, Hail Hitler? It is being wiped. I managed to listen to it it was posted on X, but it's being wiped from every other streaming social media platform. It's actually quite a catchy tune. I mean, we should not forget that he's a very talented musician. But I spoke about this with Dang Powell that it seems like Kanye Yee is off some medication, which apparently that cures anti-Semitism. So apparently there is this maybe there is this breakthrough drug which can cure racism and anti-Semitism. And now Donald Trump has just signed a executive order which he promises will bring down the price of prescription drugs in the United States. He says that pharmaceutical drug companies say for years that drugs are expensive in the US because of R&D, research and development, and all these costs were for no reason borne by the suckers of America. And has said that he'll be signing one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. Prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will reduce almost immediately by 30 to 80%. They will rise throughout the world in order to equalize for the first time in many years, bring fairness to America. He's instituting the most favored nations policy, whereby the United States will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world. Our country will finally be treated fairly, and our citizens' healthcare costs will be reduced by numbers never even thought of before. Additionally, on top of everything else, the United States will save trillions of dollars. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Make America great again. I forgot to do the Trump voice there. Now, it's again that only Donald Trump himself, a MAGA Republican, could do, because if, say, Biden did it, that would be socialized medicine. It just shows the direction that he's taken the Republican Party in. And now, of course, I've been critical of Trump in recent weeks mainly because of the tariffs, but it's I have to I'm going to reserve praise until I actually see it play out. But Donald Trump, the peacemaker, he is on a winning streak, and it even extends to that Trump is basically going to try and end the Israel-Hamas war, the Gaza blockade, because Israel has been blockading aid into Gaza since the end of the ceasefire. And so that has blocked 83% of food reaching Gaza. So it began on March the 2nd, and it has been reported in multiple mainstream media outlets that Donald Trump has begun to not trust Benjamin Netanyahu, feels disrespected and manipulated. So Trump's national security advisor, Mike Waltz, was fired for going behind Trump's back when it came to trying to feeding information back to Israel to try and thwart the US-Iran nuclear talks, which are going well. And now Richard Wollstonecroft, he released a report from Tiger Mountain a couple of weeks back, the Hyman Roth effect, which he said that he believes that Donald Trump's treatment of Benjamin Netanyahu is like how Michael Corleone treated Hyman Roth in the Godfather movies. And of course, the chair pulled out the chair for him. And this meme's been going around: how to emasculate a man, treat him like a lady. And there is even talk that Donald Trump, he's got a trip to the Middle East Arab Gulf states, so Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. He is going to unilaterally recognize Palestine, and Donald Trump unilaterally has also secured the release of a Israeli American hostage. Have I got that here? I'm happy to announce that Eden Alexander, an American citizen, has been held hostage since October 2023, is coming home to his family. I'm grateful to all those who involved in making this monumental news to happen. It was a step taken in good faith towards the United States and the efforts of the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, to pull an end to this brutal war and return all living hostages and remains to their loved ones. Hopefully, this is the first of the final steps to necessarily end this brutal conflict. I very much look forward to that day of celebration. So Trump negotiated this without the Israeli government. And he also negotiated the US ceasefire with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. So the US is not going to bomb them, and the Houthis are not going to bomb US ships traveling. And Trump called them brave for fighting. And Trump has also promised that he's going to give food to the people of Gaza. So you can imagine that Netanyahu would be absolutely seething. And his Middle East advisor, Steve Witkoff, if I've got this here, said, we want to bring the hostages home, but Israel is not willing to end the war. Israel is prolonging it despite the fact that we don't see where else we could go, and that an agreement must be reached. There is currently an opportunity window that we hope Israel and the mediators will take advantage of. We're putting pressure on all the mediators and doing everything we can to bring the hostages home. And Mark Levin, in response to a video clip where Steve Witkoff, Trump's Middle Eastern envoy, said the neocon element believes that war is the only way to solve things, and the president believes that his force of personality and the way he is going to respond to situations can bend people to do things in a much better way. I believe in that too. And Mark Levin, neocon radio host and on Fox News, said, by the way, neocon is a majority for Jew. Unbelievable. Neoconservatism, it is basically a belief that there's that always there's always a battle between good and evil. And you see, Douglas Murray wrote the book Defending Neoconservatism, and the way he talks about the Israel-Palestine conflict and Russia-Ukraine, that it's a battle for good and evil. And of course, they always defer to Churchill. He defeated evil Hitler through his just sheer determination and never giving in, refusing to accept a peace deal with Hitler, even though millions and millions of people died. Trump's not happy with the Ben Zion Melwinski. Yeah, John Howard was a neocon going to Iraq along with George W. Bush while sending Australian troops there. So Donald Trump, the Qataris, they are also going to be gifting him this week a free aircraft. So the fact that the Defense Department is getting a free gift, free of charge, a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public, transparent transaction, so bothers the crooked Democrats, they insist we pay top dollar for the plan. Anybody can do that. The Dems are world-class losers. MAGA. Now, the reason why it's important for Donald Trump to negotiate, try and have better relations with Qatar and Iran, even though they are supporting Hamas, is they can cut off the funding, the military support to Hamas. If you bring Iran and Qatar back, make them feel that they're part of the Middle Eastern community, then they're less likely to back a hostile force such as Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon. So I hope that I am pleased with Donald Trump this week. He negotiated a ceasefire in the current India and Pakistan conflict after a long night of talks mediated by the United States. I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, of course, this conflict began when there was that terrorist attack in Indian Kashmir on Hindu tourists. So there was 25 Hindus that were killed, and there was one Christian who was killed. Oh, so it was actually, sorry, it was 28 actually. And so India has retaliated with drone strikes on militants in Pakistan. They have said they've killed over 100 militants. There have been 40 Pakistani soldiers killed. And now Pakistan has responded. They have killed 25 Indian soldiers. There have been some civilians who have been killed, 21 in Pakistan as well. And now I know that what a lot of us would be concerned about is, well, this ethnic conflict playing out on our streets, because we have imported lots of people from India and Pakistan, but thankfully we haven't seen that so far. Mainly the sectarian violence in the Indian diasporas between Hindus and Sikhs in Australia and Canada. But we should also, the other reason that we should take notice is that both India and Pakistan are nuclear armed states. So the world, like, if one side launched a nuclear missile, that would be it. I mean, I've watched a lot of these mutually assured destruction Cold War movies. Literally, that is what we have to avoid at all costs. Paleoconservative Australian, there are billions of them. Let's get those numbers up. Yes, India is the most populated country now, 1.4 billion. Pakistan, which of course was a part of British India, but was partitioned when British India left. The Arab League successfully lobbied for a Islamic State. So Pakistan only has 242 million people. Bangladesh used to be part of Pakistan, but is a separate country now. Paleoconservative Australian says, have you read Camp of Saints, Tim? No, I haven't. Please send me the details. I'd love it. Now, also there has been great negotiations between the US and China with de-escalating the tariff war. So that was in Geneva, Switzerland. Trump was represented by his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. They have agreed to a 90-day slashing of reciprocal tariffs back to 10%. And now Ukraine and European leaders, with the backing of Donald Trump, have proposed an unconditional ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, threatening Vladimir Putin with new sanctions if he doesn't agree by today. But it was the European leaders, Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron, the French President, and the new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, when they were coming back from meeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv, when they invited reporters into their their carriage. So I'll first play Keir Starmer threatening Vladimir Putin with sanctions, and then the photo op in the train carriage.
No more ifs and buts, no more conditions and delays. Putin didn't need conditions when he wanted a ceasefire to have a parade, and he doesn't need them now. Ukraine has shown the willingness to engage again and again. But again and again, Putin has refused. So we are clear. All 5 leaders here, all the leaders on the meeting we just had with the coalition of the willing, an unconditional ceasefire, rejecting Putin's conditions, and clear that if he turns his back on peace, we will respond. Working with President Trump.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
It's through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah. It's literally. We came through Germany, and then we made it to France.
German bedroom, and
we got through the border.
Right.
Make a photo, and after that you will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
On va bien.
Ok, c'est bon.
Merci.
Merci.
Thank you.
And he told me he's heard a rumour about the Prime Minister. Oh. Not that one, not that one. He's heard that there is a reason why the...
Yeah, so it looks like that Macron was removing a tissue. This is what a blown tissue looks like. And I decided to act out, blow my nose. This is what a used tissue looks like. I opened the show with it as well. Now, people have zoomed in on it. Now, apparently this, I believe that this is the zoomed in of the tissue. It looks like a tissue, but people are saying, why is Macron, why is he suddenly grabbing it and putting it away like this, and then leaning back like this, like he is sort of been... They do look so awkward posing for the cameras there. And the spoon that Friedrich Merz hides in his hand, I probably should have got some sort of teaspoon just to act this out. Like, I definitely think it's a tissue. I'm pretty certain it's a tissue. I don't believe that it was a Coke bag. I saw that Topher Field released a video and it didn't seem like it was sarcastic. It seemed like he genuinely believed that they were caught with a Coke bag. Well, the spoon, the bump spoon, maybe it was just there to stir. Well, they were drinking water though. But also, you notice the fact that, well, with the documents that they had in front of them, like there was 2 sets of documents there. How come they didn't hide those? They could have been highly confidential documents, yet they didn't care. That they're more worried about getting the tissue off the photo op. No, this is a tissue. If you think that you don't, this doesn't look like a Coke bag. It's just a used tissue. Like, look, I'll just tear it up. See, it's a tissue. Bruce says, "Is it proof they're actually human?" Well, more human than, remember, Mark Carney and his wife last week doing the elbow dance. They looked like robots. And now, I should also mention that back in 2021, there was large traces of cocaine found in the Westminster toilets, including the one which Boris Johnson is next to his office. And remember in the Latham diaries, he spoke about that when he was first elected as an MP in 1994, that that MPs were smoking joints, and they passed it to him to take a swig. Well, they clearly invited the press in, so it's it's not like that they were sprung. I assume Macron, he just removed the tissue because it looked messy there, and maybe didn't want to let on that he had a cold. Now I've seen the clips recirculating today that about Vladimir Zelensky, always they're sniffing. And also, remember the cocaine that was found in the White House, and they never could conclude whose bag of cocaine it was. Obviously, Hunter Biden was the prime suspect, but it could have been somebody else. But going back to the more serious matters here, so Vladimir Putin has proposed direct peace talk negotiations with Zelensky in Turkey on Friday, which Zelensky has agreed to. He says, "I will be waiting." Now, going back to the UK, they have the Starmer government has agreed to a free trade agreement with India. So this has apparently been 3 years in negotiation. So most contentious is that Indian work migrants to the UK won't have to pay national insurance for 3 years, which is like it's sort of like the Medicare levy that we have in Australia, except for like social security, unemployment benefits. It's, even though I'm sure that like the Medicare levy, it just goes into consolidated revenue. Although Starmer this week has announced tougher visa rules for migrants. They'll have to wait 10 years to become permanent residents. And will that include illegals? I mean, is it going to get tougher on illegals? I mean, it's something like close to a tenth of the population of London is illegal. And now Tommy Robinson, he has deleted his silenced documentary from social media. He said that he would never do that. He's still in solitary confinement. Of course, he is not hurting anybody, unlike the Southport terrorist Axel Ruda-Cabana, who hurled boiling water over a prison guard in a premeditated attack. Also, there has been it's been called a free trade agreement between the US and UK, but it hasn't been signed. But it's basically similar to the US-China one, that the reciprocal tariffs back to 10%, including on steel and aluminium. So that's back to 10%. So it's better than Australia, yet it's not formal yet. So still, there is a lot. Two-tier justice continues in the United Kingdom. Trump didn't get any concessions from Starmer about allowing more free speech. But as I said previously, you can't really demand that other nations change the way that they are governed, whether it be through trade sanctions or through an actual war, military operation. And some good news finally in Germany. So the German Office for the Protection of the Constitution has suspended its extremist label for the Alternative for Deutschland party after the party threatened to sue. Clearly, there was in the new German government, they clearly realized that this overreach would lead to civil unrest in Germany, which is the last thing that they want. Alternative for Deutschland is still number one in the polls. All right, everybody, that brings us to the end of Tim's News Explosion for another week. And now I am going into surgery this Wednesday. I have varicose veins on my right leg, so I'm a bit intimidated, nervous about the surgery. Hope it all goes well. It's only a day procedure, but hopefully, if it all goes well, I will be back with Wilms Front this Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Melbourne time on the Wilms Front channels. My guest will be the Executive Director of National Conservatism Australia, Dan Ryan. And there will also be another fresh report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft later in the week. Remember, I cannot bring you all of these Unshackled productions without your support. So please consider taking out a premium membership on the unshackled.net/membership. So monthly $5 per month, bronze, silver $10 per month, gold $25 per month, and platinum $50 per month, or yearly for $50 per year, $100 per year, gold $250 per year, and platinum $500 per year. And also, of course, so the unshackled.net is where I publish Unshackled articles, like my report last week on the Liberals and Greens, the election failure, because they weren't focused on Australian policies. And it is over on Substack, which is where the Unshackled Productions archive is, and where I send email alerts out for upcoming Unshackled productions like Tim's News Explosion tonight. So you can monthly $5 per month, annual $50 per year, founding member $500 per year, or you can sign up for free just to get the email alert. So remember, as Iron Duke said above, smash the like button. That's the easiest thing you can do. Even better, leave a comment below, because that helps with the algorithm, and also share it with your friends as well. I know that Iron Duke does in his Discord Anglosphere chat, so I very much appreciate that, Iron Duke. And I will see you back on Thursday, hopefully 7 p.m. Melbourne time. Make sure that Wilms Front, you're not only subscribed, but click the bell to a notification. So there's, I've offered a bit of hope tonight that there could be some peace and stability in the world, which obviously is good because it stops people dying, and it also means that there is less of these mass movements of people that try and find their way to our countries, which causes social unrest in our countries. So hopefully I come back next week and Donald Trump has the perfect week over in the Middle East. So good night, everybody. Stay safe, stay sane, stay clean, unlike allegedly Macron, Merz and Starmer, and stay optimistic, and I will see you later. Good night.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.